Good morning. I'm Erin Benham, the chair of the Legislation Policy Development Committee, calling it to order. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes, actually two sets of minutes, our last committee meeting and then our special meeting on November 13th. If I could have a motion for both.
So moved.
Second.
Any changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're just going to make a change in our agenda items. So Irene has a meeting she has to get to. So we're going to skip down to update on the goal number 2. Irene, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, everyone, and good morning. We are grateful for this opportunity to provide you with an update on Goal 2 of the State Department of Education's comprehensive plan. We do have a few slides to share with you that identify the strategies relative to that Goal 2, along with our achievements across the years. I would like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Melissa Hickey, our Director of Reading and Perkins. She is going to be able to provide some key highlights for the committee, as she has been the lead in a lot of this work with the academic and the turnaround team. So really quick, I'm going to share my screen. It's only about 4 slides, so we'll be brief. I'm just making sure. Okay, yes, you should be able to see it. And now I'm losing that. Okay. Not sure if this is going to work very well in this format. So hopefully I can leave it this way. So I'll just start talking through the slides and then let Dr. Hickey speak to them. So again, you'll notice the structure. Here's our Goal 2, high expectations for every student. And our first strategy has been to support early literacy success. So Dr. Hickey, if you wouldn't mind sharing an update.
Sure. So once again, thank you so much for having us here today. This has been a goal that we've been working on consistently over the years. So supporting early literacy success. We chose 2 strategies in this goal. This is the first strategy, and it's all about leveraging our initiatives to support districts with the K-3 literacy. We've been very fortunate in that we have strong allies with the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus. They ensure that we have money in a budget line to support this. It's the only budget line we have for the academic side, the academic team, so we're very fortunate to have that. You can see here where we've been focusing on providing professional learning and supporting districts. Do you want me to talk through the next slide?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. So in 2019-20, there were milestones that were delivered. We were fortunate that ReadCon, which is our foundational skill professional learning, did stop right before the pandemic hit. So everyone got the full advantage of having both in-person and online. 200 educators took advantage of that this year. They do that in teams because we know how important structures are. So administrators come, we have a literacy leader in each of the buildings that come, and then a team of teachers to learn how do we teach foundational skills and the philosophy behind that. We also supported 68 schools in 13 alliance districts. When the pandemic hit, we quickly transferred to online supports, assisting towns like Middletown with their summer school program, assessing students online, and providing professional development for teachers online. The L work continued, where we created guidance and professional learning. And you can see here, we had the guidelines for administrators, the equitable assessment practices, and the pathways to success, adding to that program. Now, our second goal, our next steps. So we will continue the work, obviously. Our 2021 next steps, We are now going virtual with ReadCon. Like I said in the past, teachers, administrators, literacy leaders not only came in person, but also went online. This time we're going to do online and have coaches available to support them. We're continuing to work with PCG in this work. We're going to expand our Connecticut literacy model focus for the lowest performing districts. We have been digging in deep, especially in places like Hartford and New Haven, and doing some exciting things there. We're going to continue to offer the L-oriented professional learning and support and providing Connecticut schools and districts curricula template documents. On an exciting note, Megan Aliabicki-Flick, with the work she's been doing with L's, today is actually meeting with one of the transition teams, one of Biden's transition teams, and helping to advise that. So Connecticut is on the map, which is exciting about that. So strategy 2 is around math and supporting high quality math curriculum instruction. As we all know, curriculum is that equity lever, and we want to ensure that districts have strong curricula that are hitting all students. This is about using evidence-based practices for math. In 2019-20, the milestones that were delivered, we've been supporting the Alliance districts again, and there's been a walkthrough tool that has been created, once again with that philosophy of putting structures in place. We know that structures are really important alongside professional learning. So teaching people when they're going through classrooms, what are they looking for? What should they be seeing and evidenced in front of the students? What should the teacher be doing? What are the kids being expected to know, understand, and be able to do? We also expanded the Commissioner's Summer Math Challenge and at NetStat. So there's a series of meetings that go on called NetStat, working with our most fragile districts. And we had a thread throughout about focusing on math. How do we teach math? How do we pull parents into math? Also provided cross-divisional math supports and guidance. So looking at district curricula. For 2020-21, our next steps, currently we're conducting a survey. We want to see what are people doing in districts. How are they teaching math? What resources are they using? So that's going on right now. I believe over 100 people so far have been answering that. We're going to facilitate focus groups of districts. So seeing who is teaching similarly, what resources are being used, grouping them, finding out what are the pros, what are the cons, what are their challenges, what are their successes, so that we can really share across the districts in this time where people are feeling very segregated and alone. So what can we do to pull people together? And continuing to provide Connecticut schools and districts with documents, curricula template documents to assist them, once again, with what we know is such a positive lever. So that is our, in a nutshell, very quick summary of the work we've been doing last year and the focus we have for this year. So thank you, Irene, for having me share.
Yes.
Thanks,
And thank you.
Melissa. I do have a question for you concerning what you said about the assistance that you're providing for the L's. Is that open to all educators or just bilingual ESOL?
No, all educators, all educators. You know, what we're really stressing is that the strategies we use for L's are good strategies for all students. So that's something that we've been really stressing. And, you know, I apologize because I really need to thank the team. And the team is Jen Michelik for math, Joanne White for language arts, and then up to now it's been just Megan for the L work. So we've all been really working hard. But yes, everything. Anytime we have any kind of meeting, if it's just around language arts or math, we always have L representation and the flip side.
Great, because I know a lot of districts did not typically do that, and it was kept like sort of in isolation, which, you know, they found was not a good thing to do. I mean, that is so important if there's that kind of population in a school, that all teachers are exposed to it. It gives a comfort level to teachers as well to have that kind of that training. So thanks for that, and thank you for all your work. Questions from the committee or comments from the committee? Bob?
Yeah, well, I guess one is kind of out of ignorance. What is an L?
English
Oh, I'm sorry.
learner.
English learners.
Okay.
English learners. ELs. I know we
Is
got
it-
to stop using that classroom lingo.
The other one
Yeah,
out.
my apologies.
When you went out to the Alliance
Mine too.
district and provided the information, how receptive were they? All pretty receptive to it, or did you run into any resistance?
People are really receptive. A lot of the opportunities that we provide, they actually come to us. You know, they have questions. What's really great too is we make it a point to find models. So there are districts who are doing things in a way where their students are really succeeding despite a lot of challenges. So we really like to showcase them because it's always helpful when a district sees another district who's being successful, and then they can say, I can do this too. And then, Erin, thank you so much. You reminded me. What I didn't mention is with ReadCon, that is also one of our requirements, that we have someone that's representing ELS and special ed in attendance. We worked very closely this last year with special ed, so a special thank you to Brian. He had some funding available that we were able to utilize and really focus on a lot of the work around dyslexia that was legislated. So, you know, everything we do, we really try to do in that collaborative environment.
If I may add, Erin, I just wanted to add to that with the question with regard to Alliance districts. I think it's the teacher testimonials too that are so powerful, because those districts that, like Middletown, and when the teachers speak to the impact on not only their practice, but what they're seeing with their students, then other people want to be a part of that. And that's kind of helping other districts turn the corner and say, yes, we want to integrate this into our work. So there's a lot of that sharing of practices across all of the Alliance districts. So thanks to Lisa Lomenzo and the team on the turnaround side of constantly sharing what's happening through this work. And also the cross-divisional team, which means we have members across all departments at the agency at these meetings and talking about all learners. And I would say we're very good role models for saying, well, where are the L's in this? Where are the English learners in this work? Because sometimes you don't want it to be an afterthought. So we are being very good role models to say they have to be front and center in all of the work that we're doing. So it is truly integrated.
Thanks,
And
Irene.
with the Connecticut literacy model work, we're very fortunate to work with Literacy How and Hill for Literacy and UConn. And you know, when the pandemic hit and everything went online, it was a huge mind shift for teachers, administrators, students. You know, you wanted to be doing the same, but in a different environment. So we were using and working with the districts to try to figure out how could we do this in a way that we can continue assessing students and teaching students those K-3 foundational skills in this very different environment. You know, we're accustomed in classrooms to be sitting right next to the student when we're assessing or snuggling up to read. So, you know, this was a very different environment, and we're so grateful to those districts who did try so many different practices. And because of that work, we were able to make a video of how do you assess students online, and we found that it was working. You know, we could be doing a lot of this work online, getting information that can be moving instruction forward.
Melissa, is it possible that you could share the video? Is the video a very lengthy one, or?
Oh, yes, I can share. No, it's not lengthy. I can send you the link. Let me.
Okay, that'd be great. I'd love to see how, you know, assessments are being done online. That's an interesting, you know, an interesting topic I'd like to see. Karen, I know you had a question.
I do. I'm interested in how are you mapping these initiatives against measures of student success or outcomes, and how are you telling the story? How are you getting the narrative out about the impact, the progress on goal 2?
So up to this point, we have been using student data. So we've been using data from our state assessment and from some of the L assessments. Last year, we were not able to do that. So I have former documents that we submitted to the board when we were doing these kind of check-ins that I could share also in my email if you want to see that. But once again, this year, because of the data, so we were really going right down to the student level. Some of the other data that we're using that we're not using so much here to report out on, but through ReadCon, we had surveys, you know, through CK3LI or the Connecticut Literacy Model work, they're assessing students to see what kind of growth. So we have those kind of more qualitative data this year versus the quantitative that we've had in the past.
And as far as telling our
I think
story,
my follow-up would be, as we as a board begin to think about the next 5-year plan, what would you recommend on this goal? What should we be thinking about as we look forward for another 5 years?
That's a great question, and we didn't realize that we want to be a part of that process for sure. And I think we're just scratching the surface with our discussions with the commissioners. So I would love to be able to come back with some ideas on that. I think we would love to be able to. But Melissa, if you have some thought.
Well, I'm not certain what the 5-year plan will look like. Regardless of that, these initiatives and goals will continue because we know they're important. I would suggest using is both, once again, that quantitative and qualitative data. I think it's important to see, since we, as a state, it's the people whom we can most impact are administrators, teachers, providing information to parents. You know, we're not in the classroom instructing students. We're trying to support and support teachers and administrators and schools and districts and have them use these evidence-based practices that we know work. So I think that's a really great question, and I would love to look into it further, as Irene was saying. Really seeing, all right, based on what we've been putting in place, what changes have you seen? And I know like I said, we're working with UConn, and with that work, we are actually going to be doing another study because we have an older study that showed it worked in the districts. And we are required every year to write a legislative report for the legislators around that work. So, we have, I'm thinking, we do have things in place, but I'm not sure what you as a board would want to use as your indicators of success. But yeah, I would love to talk about it further. I think that would be great.
I think we'll know more as we start working on that actual our next 5-year plan, and certainly then all the pieces, as we did the last time, as some board members can recall. We came up with our priorities and then put in the pieces of the agency and staff that had to go insert in there. But knowing full well that a lot of the goals certainly that we have in this present 5-year plan will continue. They just don't stop because the plan does. That they'll continue because a lot of them have been so successful. Anything else from any other committee members before we move on to the next item? I don't see anybody. Thank you, Irene and Melissa. Oh, Irene?
Yeah, there was a question Karen had asked about, like, how are we telling our story, I believe. So I just wanted to give you some information on that. Certainly through our monitoring meetings with the Alliance districts and the 10 opportunity districts, they're sharing their story with us, and that's a way for us to monitor too how they're implementing the strategies. Are they being fully committed and being a partner with CK3LI and so on, and utilizing the resources that we've provided. Additionally, we now have the Connecticut literacy model within the CT Learning Hub under the model curriculum portion. So it is there. Thank you, Matt Falconer. We've created a drop-down button. You just click on it and it expands, and we're sharing like why you should be taking advantage of this work, how you might sign up and be a partner in this work. So it's another way to tell the story. And once you go into that website that has been designed by UConn, you'll see the testimonials, you'll see the portrait of the schools that are partnering with them. So it's another way that we're telling the story of this important work.
And if I could, I just want to say thank you. I think, you know, for myself and the majority of my staff, we come from districts and we really crave, and I know I'm going to use this word again, but structure. So by having that 5-year plan and then by having our goals aligning to the plan, that really assists us in really focusing our efforts on the work and bringing it forward. So I'm really interested and exciting to see what the next 5 years will bring and the impact on our work. And like Erin said, wherever that may land, the things that we have been doing, like this work with math and language arts and ELS, it won't stop.
Yeah, and I think to have a greater impact too on the learners is how can our state strategic plan or comprehensive plan support the districts where they might find a way to align to our plan in their own district strategic plan in some way. Mm-hmm. I think that you talk about cohesive approach and connecting the dots. I think that would be something to consider going forward.
So thank you so much.
Irene, that's very much how we did it with our first the 5-year plan that we're currently in. There was a lot of surveys that we got from educators, from community, from parents. I mean, we had so many subgroups that we reached out to get that information to create that plan. So it was important that our plan became what was needed in the state, you know, by many stakeholders. So
yeah, there's many tenets within the current plan, which I know sunsets in 21. That's why we're having these conversations that I hope will continue to live on, because there are very strong tenets there that I think we all believe in. So
yeah, certainly. Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies, very much. Irene, I know you need to get to another meeting.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate your flexibility.
Thank you. And that brings us to item number 3. And Brian, good morning. You are up.
Good morning. Thank you, Erin, and good morning to you all. I hope you're all well this morning. We are looking for a recommendation from the committee for the principles, procedures, and standards for the approval of private special education programs to be brought to the full State Board of Education for approval. The previous document was approved by the board back on June 3rd, 1998. So I'm assuming that none of you were involved with the board at that time, many years ago, but we're very excited that we have a much improved document that is in front of you this morning. I'd like to first thank the leadership and the work of Colleen Hales, who is a BSE consultant, who is with us this morning. Morning, Colleen, who's been overseeing this process for the past 10 years or so. And Colleen has done tremendous work in this area and is extremely well respected across the state, and particularly within the APSEP community. So I'll refer to the approved private programs as APSEPs for brevity's sake for presentation. And I'd also like to thank Dory Papa, another Bureau of Special Education consultant, who's also on the line as well. Good morning, Dory, who's been assisting Colleen over the past 2 years and been a tremendous support in carrying out the approval process activities. So if it's okay with you, I just have sort of a 5-minute overview or so, 5 or so minutes, just of an overview, and then we can open it up for any questions or comments. And certainly Colleen and Dory will step in and answer any questions that are needed. The update of the document includes 3 real main areas. We updated current legislative requirements. We've updated language to bring it up to date, as well as best practices in special education, including mostly language around positive behavioral supports and models for students who have intensive needs. The updates reflect input from directors, both public and private, and a formal advisory group that we had in place, including members of the Office of Child Advocate, CAPSEF, which is the Organization for Approved Private Programs, CPAC, which you may know is our Parent Training Institute in the state, Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center, AFCAMP, which is African Caribbean American Parents of Children with Disabilities, and Disability Rights Connecticut. So we were really pleased to have representatives from all of those organizations provide input and reflections within the documents, as well as the directors themselves who go through the approval process. So I want to thank Colleen and Dory for their efforts in obtaining that input. The role of the APSEP is for really our school districts work to meet the needs of all students. However, there are some students where they may need to contract with a special education provider to provide services to the students, and they're implementing the IEP that was developed by the public schools planning and placement team. And so they play a very critical and crucial role in the continuum of supports and services across the state. Right now, there are 70 programs in place across the state, and we have those programs posted on EdSite, including contact information and their website, so you can be able to look at and click on information related to the specific programs. Our approval process, just a couple of highlights. To apply for approval, a program must be in existence for 1 year and have at least 10 students within the program. There's a very thorough process, including a 32-page application and as many as 20 attachments that are sent to us for review when programs are interested in becoming approved by the state. And of course, they must meet the standards as set forth by the State Board of Education. There are 11 main areas. I won't go through all the areas now, but there are 11 areas that were the focus of those standards within the document, and each has its own section where we articulate the requirements for each of the programs. After the application process, there are site visits. There are 3 components. There's a 2-day site visit, including an exit conference. So those are the 3 different components where we're looking at file reviews, records, observations, interviews with staff, very comprehensive on-site observations. That generates a preliminary evaluation report, and there are 1 of 3 possible findings upon that review. A program can be approved, there can be conditional approval, or the approval can be withheld. And the approval can be awarded to the program for 3 to 5 years, whereas a conditional approval is a 1-year approval. Just to give you some context, there are, and Colleen, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have roughly 14 programs where we're approving this year. There are 10 programs from the previous year where COVID had impacted our timelines and timeframe. So in addition to the 14 that are due for approval this year, we do have 10 that we're completing actually this month for programs. And again, I want to thank the team involved with this process for adapting our procedures and practices like most of us have had to do with all of our work, so that many of the activities are done remotely, virtually, electronically, rather than in person and hard copy submissions. And I'd like to also thank our performance office and IT staff who have set up some great systems for us within online programs for us to keep confidentiality of students and to be able to maintain those standards as we go forth with the process. Once the reports are completed, we do post those reports, and I can send out the link for you as well, so you can take a look at the reports that are posted. And I also would like to share a one-page document that summarizes the information that I just shared with you, including those links. It's just a nice, succinct summary of the process in one page for you, and I'm happy to share that after our meeting today. That is, Colleen or Dory, was there anything that you would like to add before we open it up for questions?
I don't think so, Brian. I think you've pretty much covered the process, and I appreciate having the opportunity to revise this document, which we've worked on for a couple of years now to move forward. So I'm pleased that it's going this far.
Great.
Questions
I think
from the
if
committee?
there's any questions, we can, we're happy to answer at this point.
Bob? Bob, you're muted.
I still haven't got used to that. Sorry. Can you just a couple of kind of demographic questions in a way? What are the most common diagnoses of the students who are in some of these programs, both the residential and the day programs?
Yeah, that's
Brian, you want me
go
to
ahead,
do that?
Colleen.
I think there's a real cross section in terms of special education eligibility labels, if you want to call them that. The programs, most of the programs really don't support a specific attendance in their program or enrollment in their program based on a disability category. What we try to do is make sure that the program can support the student's needs. So you may have two students with very similar needs, but have been identified with two very different primary disabilities under special education. So what you'll find is that many of the programs will support students with a variety of eligibility determinations in terms of their disability, but it's really about the services they provide and if they can meet that student's needs. And that's why the IEP that is developed by the district is so important in driving whether a student is appropriate for a program, and the responsibility of the individual programs to review those IEPs to be able to determine if in fact they can meet the needs as stated in the IEP. We're really trying to focus on the programs being driven by the supports and services and specialized education that the student needs rather than by their disability category.
The other question I had was on the how is their you do testing, so you know their academic progress. Is that reported back to the local education association, or is it something that's reported? How does that data go in? Does it go in back to the LEA and gets reported as one of their students, or is it separately reported?
All of the students that are placed by school districts remain the responsibility of the sending school district. The approved private special education programs are more or less a service that the school districts are contracting for the purpose of implementing the IEP, because for whatever reason, they're not able to do so. So the responsibility for the student and the student's programming, the efficacy of the program, all of that is the responsibility of the district who must conduct oversight of the individual student's program. So all of the testing that would be required for a student in public school, all of the students that are placed in the approved private schools participate in that statewide testing.
And just like any other special education student who has an IEP in a public school, there are requirements for progress reporting and annual reviews of a student's progress within those settings that the district is responsible to conduct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at all? And I believe we have action on this, correct, Jessa?
Yes, yeah, we're requesting a vote to move this forward to the full board next month. And so that will give you some additional time if you want to look through it. And again, for Brian to share that sort of broad overview that he's prepared. And I just wanted to just highlight, again, thank you to the team on this. I was particularly impressed with the work that was done to work with the communities on this and to get input from all of the individuals who are our stakeholders. I know that is a broad group of individuals with a lot of different perspectives, and I was particularly impressed with your efforts to ensure that you heard all of those voices in developing this. And I think it was worth the time. So I really appreciate that, folks. I know it was a lot of work.
And we also appreciate Jessa, you and your team as well for supporting the document itself. So thank you.
Thank you both, Colleen and Brian, for this work. It's nice to see all these different pieces of the agency coming together. That's quite a change we've seen over the last couple of years, and it's great to see the different pieces coming together and working like that, connecting the dots, as Jessa said. So that's great. I do need a motion to bring this document to the full board in January on our recommendation to bring it.
So moved. This is Bonnie.
I'll second that motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Just say
Aye.
thank you. Again, thank you, Brian and Colleen.
Thank
and
you.
Jessa. I think
Thank you very much.
Jessa, do you have anything else that you want to before we actually adjourn early? Holy moly.
No, just to confirm that we are planning to, I know that there are two things that are definitely planning to be on the agenda for next time. One is to get an update from Dr. Adrian Wood on the work that he's been doing on the position statement, which I know he's been working with Karen and Malia on, and also Erin reminded me, and we'll try to do the cleanup of the bylaws. There were some relatively small changes, but we'll try to get that finished so that we can move forward with that. But thank you all for your time, and I look forward to seeing you at the full board meeting in a few minutes.
Yes, and our next meeting, we did get notice our next meeting will be on the 13th. So we'll plan on our policy also to be prior to the 13th. Okay. All right, we'll move to adjourn and we'll see you in about 20 minutes. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.